undefinable in morphology. I'll go through the way people talk about it. I will also go through the meanings and the functions that are associated with inflection and with derivation. I'd like to introduce you to John Dewey's relevance hierarchy. That to you will seem ancient because it was suggested in 1985, but it is it offers great insight about the motivation for the structure of words and the arrangement of morphemes when they are arranged. I will, I don't like things to be black or white. I will be pushing the point that inflection and derivation are sometimes clearly distinguished, but they are really endpoints of a continuum. There are a lot of processes in language that fall in between what we think of as inflection and what we think of as derivation. So there is a lot of middle ground, and some things will have the features of inflection more, will be closer to that end, and others will be closer to the derivational end. In a crude way, inflectional processes will produce things like nominals, like plurals of nouns. So they express well-established general grammatical categories. Here I've given you plural, later on I'll be talking about the past and things like that. Derivation, on the other hand, expresses meanings that can be very specific or very abstract, but the degree of abstractedness or specificity varies. So somebody who dances is a dancer, so that's an agent, but it's still somebody who is doing something, and it's a tangible meaning. Inflection creates paradigms. This means that it creates forms that need to be there for a word to be seen as a grammatical word in language X. Whereas derivation is said to create patterns. No matter how productive it is, there are people who tell you that there is no such thing as a derivational paradigm. Paradigm is reserved to the domain of inflection, and when you talk about derivation, you talk about patterns. Inflectional morphemes tend to have allomorphs. So the English plural will have two allomorphs that we know and use all the time, one S and the other Z. Z after sonorants and vowels, and S after voiceless consonants. Derivational affixes, even if they have similar meanings, and here I've given like two, dumb and ship, and they both derive abstract nominals from something, like from adjectives for freedom and from other nouns for ship, but they're not seen as allomorphs. They're two different morphemes that both derive abstract nouns. So in inflection, we can talk about suppletion. When a stem changes within a paradigm that is accepted as an inflectional paradigm, we accept the term suppletion to describe that stem change. If we see similar stem change in a derivational pattern that is very productive, we don't speak of it as suppletion, or at least many people reject that. So what is a paradigm? That is another huge question. And with huge questions, what you do, and that we do in class, that you will do later on in your own research, you make your reader or whoever you're talking to aware of the fact that it's a complex problem, and then you give your working definition. however you understand the concept. And what is very important is to stick to that definition, to show that you're consistent. Even if people who don't agree with you will respect your consistency in reason. So for today, I will define as paradigm the set of all the forms that a lexeme has in a language. So in English, verb paradigm doesn't have many to speak of. The present has like 2 forms, the past has 1, the past participle has also 1, and then the present has a gerund, that's it. Now if we go to a Turkish paradigm, and that's only part of the paradigm, things are different, right? So if we look at the Turkish verb, what does it need to express in order to be a verb? It has to have like tense, right? Long does it have to have tense? It has this tense has to appear and reflect who is speaking. So person, number. It also polarity is not marked if it's affirmative. It is marked if it's negative. So negation is a morphological category on Turkish verbs. You can express mood, and we'll see, we'll talk about mood later on. In traditional Turkish grammar, this is mood. In people who do mood and modality, claim that the evidential, as it is in Turkish, as it is in many other languages, is actually a separate grammatical domain. So it should be called evidentiality instead of mood. Mood is reserved for when you really change the illocutionary act. So imperative against declarative. Okay, that's mood. Yes.
What do you mean by mood?
At the evidential.
I don't guess.
Okay.
I will explain in Turkish later.
Okay. Are you going to explain now?
Not tomorrow. I will explain them in Turkish.
Well, okay. So let me say something about mood. Okay, you know about grammatical tense refers to the time of the
Türkçesi
action.
keep.
Ah, okay.
Keep.
Okay.
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 Can I say what I don't know what is keep?
Mood.
Oh, okay. Well, if I can say what I mean, a tense refers to the time
Bildirme
an action
kipleri.
is performed.
Bunlar bildirme kipleri.
Haber kipi var, şey
Haber kipi. Bunlar haber kipi.
Person refers to who is talking. I or you or somebody else.
Okay.
Number refers to how many of us are talking. Mood. Okay, in traditional grammar, mood would refer to several things, but that will be whether I'm telling a story and everybody is listening, or whether I'm telling somebody what to do. I will tend to speak in 2 different ways. So my speech act is different. There is also in Turkish, there is also the perspective of the speaker, whether the speaker believes in what they're saying or if they have doubts. Traditionally, people include this into mood. People who have been doing research on mood and evidentiality now claim evidentiality is your perspective. Okay, how much do I believe in what I'm saying and how much do I doubt it? Evidentiality is a separate grammatical domain. So nowadays in articles and more modern textbooks, you will find tense mood, tense aspect mood, and evidentiality. Aspect is not something that you will have very much of in Turkish, but there, I mean, there obviously there are it's not the dominant category, but aspect refers to how the action is performed. If it's prolonged in time, or if it takes place as one unit and is fairly precise and short. So Turkish verbs inflect for all that, and there is something else they also inflect to. It is the infinitive is also part of the paradigm, and in grammatical terms, this is finiteness, because all of these forms, they carry the marker of who is speaking. But whoever is speaking, you don't always talk about yourself like I'm coming or he's coming or whatever. You can refer to the action of coming, and that is done without including any kind of person in it. So the forms that include a person are called finite forms. The forms that do not include a person, but are only used as reference to an action in a particular context, are called the non-finite forms. In Turkish, that's the infinitive, but we see that in other languages there are other forms. So, this is a partial paradigm of a Turkish verb, but in terms of the categories that a Turkish verb has to have, they have to have tense, they have to have person and number, they have to have polarity, they have to have mood or evidentiality, and they have to have finiteness. And tense, person, and number tend to be bundled in one suffix. So we have 3 different categories in one suffix. The term for this is cumulative expression. You accumulate several categories in one morpheme. That is very typical for inflection. And that's a term I want you to learn, because next time or some other time I will be talking about another bundling of meanings within a paradigm. And that I'm not going to talk about it now. Okay? So far we're following, we're on the same page? Cool. This is inflection in Turkish verbs. So we'll leave Turkish verbs. We'll go to look at what kind of inflectional meanings are associated with verbs worldwide. So tense, aspect, mood, and evidentiality are very common, and that we saw that they're in Turkish. Polarity is also in Turkish. Finiteness is also in Turkish, and we'll see further examples of that. They can be called dependent verb forms. Agreement is in Turkish because you index whoever is talking on the verb. Okay, that's agreement. I'll be talking more about this. Voice can also be expressed morphologically on a Turkish verb. The question is it really inflection? I will start by going to a language, to Malagasy, which is an Austronesian language of Madagascar. That's the only Austronesian language in Africa, and the easternmost Austronesian language. So for the record, Austronesian is the largest family in the world. They stretch from Madagascar, which is like the east coast of Africa, to Easter Island, which is west coast of South America. So it's a lot of water, more than half of the earth, lots of islands, lots of diversity. The Austronesian language family covers more than 1,600 languages, and they're all very different from each other with a very long history, and many migrations in